together. We came together as strangers. Most of us have never met each other in person, but I believe the work we have done is going to and has changed the world. So let's get this PowerPoint up. And our final numbers on our 2020 postcards, we have sent 6.4 million postcards into our target states on voter registration, on pledge to vote, on instructions on vote by mail to seniors in the great state of Texas, and now get out the vote. So for everybody who sent a postcard, stuck on a stamp, or stuck on a label, a heartfelt thank you from me and the entire leadership of Reclaim Our Vote. All right, now, this is from October 8th through October 16th. Elsa, remember you said you wanted to see 100,000 phone calls? Well, you're seeing 119,000 phone calls. That is what we did 10/8 through 10/16. We called 7 of our 8 target states, and we totally rocked it. Now, later on tonight, Mississippi is going to have phone banks. So those phone banks will be up tomorrow morning. Let me tell you a story about Mississippi. In Mississippi, I have to put the phone banks up, not one county at a time, but one precinct at a time. The largest county in Mississippi is Hinds County. That's where the city of Jackson, Mississippi is. When I went to pull the precinct list so we could put in the address of where voters vote, the state website for Hinds County is broken. The Hinds County website is broken. So in other words, it is impossible for voters in Mississippi right now to figure out where they vote because all the websites are broken. I put that in Say Something, Say Something. We will be shining light on that on Monday morning. So I believe that by Monday afternoon, they will mysteriously get fixed. Now, we have crossed the million call mark at Reclaim Our Vote. 1,877 phone calls. I knew we would hit that mark. I was about a week off as to when we would hit it, but we hit it. So again, to Gabe and the phone bank team, to all of our script writers, to everybody who has been on the phone, to our wonderful volunteers, Gabe, Athena, Kimberly, who are making movies saying phone banking is really, really easy, to all of our people who attended the phone banking for humans, helping people understand this really isn't as scary as it sounds. Thank you. We are making a difference. And here's the difference we're making. In Georgia, for the June primary, we made 79,000, I call them good calls, meaning we spoke to the voter or we were able to leave a message. Out of those 79,000 calls, 57,610 people voted. That's 73% of the good calls we made resulted in a voter going out and voting. And these voters, most of them voted absentee. And we were calling the Georgia Black Belt, the folks where you would expect they would have the biggest problem voting absentee or vote by mail in Georgia. They were successful. And out of that 57,610 voters, 25,000 of them were new voters who had never voted in a primary election before. And as anyone can tell you, if you can get someone to vote in a primary, and this primary was in June, so that means the presidential election had long been decided. We got these voters out. They voted. We know that 85 to 90% of our primary voters are then going to go on and they are going to vote in the general. And out of that 57,610, 10,000 people had only voted in one other primary. So again, congratulations, a fabulous job, well done. Now, so many of you have been contributing to our billboard campaign. I've got some fun pictures to show you what your investment in democracy have purchased. In South Carolina, we were very, very worried that the voters in South Carolina wouldn't know that they could start voting on October 5th because South Carolina had never allowed all their voters to go and vote early. So we put up billboards all over South Carolina. Absentee voting is for everyone. Vote in person or by mail starting October 5th. If you have voting problems, if you see something, say something. And the local folks in South Carolina were so inspired that they put their money together and they went out and they got billboards so that South Carolina is covered with these billboards. Now, they were also very inspired by our Vote Your Power campaign. So they made up t-shirts, and during voter registration, they were out talking to voters saying, I vote my power, do you? And our big mobile billboard that we own, the notorious RVG, I love the picture on the left. There's the notorious RVG parked under one of the Vote Your Power billboards in South Carolina. Now, maybe it's just me, but I am positive when she pulled out and was going down the road that the billboard was smiling and it was waving and it was going, that's my baby. Look at my baby go. There goes my baby. And the notorious RVG really is notorious. On Thursday, the notorious RVG in her light purple and turquoise blue self was in Georgia at Stone Mountain. So regardless of the history of a place, we are taking the message about voting. Now, back to South Carolina. We're still in South Carolina. Notice their version of our Vote Your Power sign. They are running souls to the polls. Remember I said we were really worried, will anybody show up to vote on October 5th? So they led a caravan of 30 cars going to the polling location in South Carolina, in Florence, South Carolina. And they said when they got there, they said not only was the line all the way down the street, it went around the corner, there was nowhere for them to park. So they had to go into satellite parking. And there you see the cars. The lead car has the American flags on it. And every one of those cars has a Vote Your Power, souls to the polls magnet on it. Now, that inspired a voter to come over and say, are you with the elections? And they explained, no, we're really just providing rides to the polls. And so the voters said, well, I want to tell you something. When I went to vote this morning, Jamie Harrison did not appear on my ballot, and I had to write him in. So this was something that They then called me, and then I put it in See Something, Say Something. NPR followed up on it. A number of other people followed up on it. And so now the South Carolina Board of Elections has said, oh, it was a problem that we had. That problem has been resolved. Jamie Harrison's name should be appearing on everybody's ballot. So we are going to continue watching, and we are also really delighted that See Something, Say Something may have had an opportunity to make a difference in South Carolina early on, where we're able to hold the Board of Elections accountable. And then the front and the rear of the notorious RVG. One of the things that I learned in doing mobile billboards is it's kind of hard for people to read the side of a mobile billboard as you're whizzing by at 60, 65 miles an hour. But if you get behind it, it's really easy to stay behind it and then have an opportunity to read the back of the RV and look at not only our Vote Your Power message, but also see the incredible list of our partners. And everywhere the RBG goes, she attracts the crowd. And you can see on the photo on the right, there are pictures of the car magnets that she's carrying. And so we have the big mobile billboard carrying little mobile billboards. The billboards went up statewide in North Carolina yesterday. And here's the North Carolina billboards. Register, vote, drop your ballot during early voting, now until October 31st. Paid for by the Center for Common Ground. And then here's our big See Something, Say Something. Now, the billboards have gone up in Alabama, in Mississippi, and in Georgia. We already had them in South Carolina and now North Carolina. So what we're going to do, in addition to the billboards that are going up in Texas Texas is going to have two digital mobile trucks. On one side of the truck will be this See Something, Say Something. On the other side of the truck will be the Texas version of this. And those trucks will be going between Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. Now, See Something, Say Something. Deepak has outdone himself this year. So what you're seeing now, these are the 2020 voting instances or issues that have been reported so far. Our teams of people that are doing reviews are starting to review social media, looking for people saying threatening and intimidating things on social media. So we will have those directly from impacted voters and also from our reviewers. I was at a meeting this afternoon where we were talking with the NAACP. They are part of a national coalition. They have recruited 4,000 attorneys, and Mr. Ion Sanchez, a person who was the former elections administrator in the great state of Florida. They like the idea of utilizing See Something, Say Something, and having that as a tool for every poll monitor that is monitoring the polls. They have 4 additional target states that aren't ours. Virginia is a target state for them, as is Ohio, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So they're adding those 4 states to the 8 states that we already have. So again, imagine the number of people who will officially be using See Something, Say Something. So this is a tool that we have in the hands of, or could be in the hands of every voter. And this is what I mentioned when I was talking about Jackson, Mississippi. The city of Jackson is in Hinds County. This is the snapshot that I posted on See Something, Say Something. County Hinds, Mississippi.us. No information is available for this page. Great. How are people supposed to get a listing of the polling locations? And then the other one from the Mississippi page says the page cannot be displayed because an internal server error has occurred. So again, they will be confronted with this on Monday morning, and let's see how long it takes them to fix their internal server error. Now, the next stop for us, November 3rd, that is a rallying point. That is a milestone. But our next stop will be all the way to a brand new constitutional amendment. Now, I've been working for 10 years on ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. Sorry, move to amend. The ERA will be Constitutional Amendment number 28. Number 29 will be a constitutional right to vote. And here is the current language from HJ Res 93. Every citizen of the United States who is of voting age shall have the fundamental right to vote in any public election held in the jurisdiction in which the citizen resides. Congress shall have the appropriate power to enforce and implement this article by appropriate legislation. So this is where we're going. It is my goal to be one and done by 2024. That means everybody who has always been listed as being in a support state, now you will become a target state because we will need your U.S. representatives and your U.S. senators to co-sponsor this legislation, vote for it. It will then be signed by the new president, and then the next pivot will be to turn and get 38 states to ratify Amendment number 29 to the Constitution, which will in effect overturn felony disenfranchisement. And then we will have a collection of enabling legislation that will close the loopholes that the states have been using for years to disenfranchise voters. For instance, if voting is truly a right, then while I have the right to vote, I have the right to choose not to vote, and I can remain on the voting rolls. So this is where we are going, and we hope that you will remain with us as we seek to resolve permanently why our democracy, or one of the reasons why our democracy isn't really working for everybody. Now, text percent. We have loaded a phenomenal number of cell numbers in text percent. Benita said they are texting away in Mississippi. They've already done 38% of their text. North Carolina, with 700,000 numbers, they are 94% done. So all told, we will have about 3.3 million texts that we will have sent by election day. And I know that's how many we're going to have because Deepak is sending me the phone bills. And one last thing. Yesterday, we launched the biggest geofence that we have ever done. We hit the web servers of every college and university in our 8 target states. We identified 8 million voters that we are sending digital ads to. So remember the Vote Your Power billboard? They're getting that Vote Your Power symbol with an appropriate message for their state. And they're also getting See Something, Say Something that has already begun going out to 8 million people who are attached or connected to a college web server in our 8 target states. That means this ad will be seen by students, by faculty, and by staff. So, again, this has been an amazing journey, and I cannot think of better people to have gone on this journey with. So that's the end of my presentation. I know we're a little out of order. I'm just guessing that Reverend Hunt's wife may have said, no, we are going to go do what I want to do today because I don't see him yet. I mean, he is a husband, and I do get it. I mean, I know how I can be when I wanted to make plans. And he's like, look, you're not married to her. I said we're doing this. So they go, and that's what they did.
But
I did it.
Andrea, I think it would be wonderful if we could introduce Reverend Ronwo Hamami next.
Oh, I think that would be wonderful as well. I do. Yes. Reverend Hamami is a UU minister. She leads the social justice ministry for California, and she is an ROV phone bank host. So every Sunday afternoon for 3 hours, there is a phone bank, and it has been going on for a long time. Also, we're doing 2 trainings or 2 sessions at the week long, or did 2 trainings at the week long summit for all the California UUs. They did postcarding, and they also did phone banking. So, Reverend, thank you so very much for your work in supporting democracy and your work in supporting ELSA and what our organization is doing in California. So thank you.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. As a song leader, one of the songs that I keep returning to, particularly in these days of uprising and reckoning, is Ella's Song, written by Dr. Bernice Johnson Regan and performed by Sweet Honey and the Rock. Its lyrics, which I know some of you are already very familiar with, set to music the words of Ella Baker, an organizer, activist, leader, teacher, a prophet in the civil rights movement. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, becomes as important to the rest of the country as the killing of a white mother's son, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it happens. Ella Baker's words in this song are ones she wrote over 50 years ago, but they could have been written yesterday. And I'll be honest, that reality breaks my heart. It leaves me crying out, will it ever end? For some of us, that question is one that has literal life and death implications that the rest of us cannot fully know. And as much as Ella Baker's words break my heart, they also charge my spirit. Their relevance to today's manifestation of resistance and community reminds me that we are a continuation of something much bigger, much more powerful, much more incredible than this single moment in our history. Our struggles to affirm the humanity and basic rights of Black and brown lives in this country and world, they did not begin with us, and they will not end with us. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Now, I admit it took me several years of singing these words to realize that Ella Baker probably wasn't telling me, Renwadiat Mustafa Taha Hamami, personally to never rest. No. In fact, none of us as individuals should be asked or expected to never rest. But all of us who believe in freedom, as a collective, as a community, we cannot rest. Ella's song, Ella's words are a charge for all of us together as a movement to never rest. We cannot stop fighting, we cannot stop creating, we cannot rest until freedom in its truest and most universal form exists in our world. And to be that unceasing, everlasting, perseverant, irritatingly prophetic movement that never rests, we need to reaffirm, deepen, and reaffirm our connections to each other, to remember that if we do this work together, we can not rest. And just as important, to be a true continuation of that much bigger, much more powerful, much more incredible freedom movement, we must build and sustain the relationships with communities and frontline liberators who have been leading the way to universal freedom for generations. We who believe in freedom cannot rest and cannot rest when we act as a truly interdependent collective. When we are carrying our load on the way to liberation, remembering that we are part of a movement reminds us that we are not carrying that load alone. Like a choir whose singers stagger their breathing to make sure a single note remains an unbroken sound, or a hospital that runs non-stop with a rotating staff, like migrating geese who take turns leading, following, or resting in their flying formation. We cannot rest, and we cannot rest until freedom comes if we sustain our connections to one another. We need each other so that when we as individuals do rest, we know our movement towards universal freedom carries on, waiting for us to return and temporarily relieve another of their liberation load. As we count down the days to Election Day, we know that no matter the outcomes, our work will continue. We will not rest. We can not rest if we take care of each other and our shared vision for universal freedom that is possible, knowing that each and every one of us is doing the same for all of us, and knowing that our collaboration in this moment is a continuation of a that knows there will come a day when we, all of us who believe in freedom, can finally rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Thank you. Thank you. I have tears in my eyes. I think I have to take my glasses off to do this. Ranwa, thank you. Do you believe how lucky I am that I get to phone bank with her every Sunday afternoon? So we would love to have you all join us. I'm not hearing me. Am I muted? No,
We
okay.
hear you, Elsa.
We can hear you
Oh,
fine.
good. Oh, thank you, thank you. My glasses are back on. That'll help me too. Um, it's just phenomenal what we've all been putting into this. And I love the culture and framing Ranwa gives us in a more reflective moment for why we are doing what we are doing and why it does have that long-term sustainability. And thank God for Andrea Miller to have created this in a way cocoon, but it's this platform for us all to be able to really make the change that we know in our hearts we've got to make, and yet she's carved the path and she makes it so doable. And we have already seen the outpouring of voting as never, ever before in our country's history. Normally, 98% of people vote on election day. Well, all the work that all of you, led by Andrea, have done had more than 5 million people voting the first week. And when the first day there were lines around the block, people said, oh, well, that must be just the first day, and maybe those were some church groups. And then the second day, lines around the block. And the third day, the poll people in Georgia were starting to worry and say, well, by tomorrow, it's got to go down. But do you know there are now 1 million people a day casting their votes? And in that first week alone, when there were very few states up, there were 5 million votes cast by the end of the week, whereas at the same time in 2016, our last presidential election, there were only 457,000. So that's 10 times as much. But ladies and gentlemen, we have been postcarding all those millions of cards to people of color, and we want to know about those stats too. And one of the great stats that I saw said that among African Americans, there were 12 times as many people who had voted as the same time in 2016. 12 times as many. That's what you're all helping drive. Isn't that just, it gives me chills. And it's so not over yet. Do you know we're now up to 1 million people a day voting? Nobody has ever seen anything like this. And a small group of us who are working on election protection with this have been in discussion with wonderful leaders in each of our individual states. And I heard the leader from Florida say the other day, we are determined, we are going to have 85 to 90% of the vote in and counted by November 2nd, so that when it comes to election day, November 3rd, Florida is not going to hold you all up. There's not going to be any of this, well, it'll take another few weeks for us to learn about Florida, the swing state, and allow certain people to go to certain microphones and Twitter to make interesting statements that could get us all in trouble later. The degree to which the determination across the country, and particularly in these voter suppression states, has really been fire lit has just been fabulous. And I feel as though we are so lucky to have been able to be a part of this for as long as we have been. And tomorrow is still another day. So luckily there are a zillion phone banks. And I'd love to have someone put in the chat right now the link to this wonderful page that Gabriel Wheaton, son of Carrie Wheaton, has created that tells us everything you'd ever want to know about phone banking. And we're about to hear from some wonderful visitors too, or sorry, some wonderful volunteers too, the other V word, about what they've experienced with this phone banking, because no matter who you phone banked to before, if it's been to a candidate, if it's been to a president, if it's been to anybody other than Reclaim Our Vote, you have had a mixed experience, maybe to put it mildly. Whereas the most wonderful stories have come out of our phone banking because most people do not call these people. The big parties leave them alone because they say, oh, they've only got votes and I want their contributions too. Well, we don't want their dollar. We want their vote. We want them to use their power and to have that power come full sway to be able to use the power of the government, which is such a big entity, for their families and for their own benefits moving forward. So I'd love to turn it over to the amazing Angel Iglesias, who has been behind the scenes this whole time, but we're going to bring him out in front. Angel leads an entire group of UUs in Massachusetts and is not only the ace Zoom technical maven up, down, and sideways, but wait till you hear what he's been hearing on the phones. Angel, over to you.
Hi there. So it's funny that you mentioned Florida because I'm actually a Floridian. Like actually, I'm not one of those people that moved down there. I grew up down there and whatnot. And so I do, and my first election experience was actually in the 2000 election. So for those of you that have been voting for a while, you know what I'm talking about. That's a whole nother discussion. I gave a whole little preaching pulpit story at our ministry the other day about that particular experience. But anyway, so that's actually why I'm involved with this, because that was such a cluster that I have the need to get everyone involved in their democracy. And that's why I got involved here, was that the first parish in Malden, which is right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm a little bit more gregarious than most people. I don't have a fear with picking up the phone and talking to anyone. And so you might think, oh, well, that's okay for you, Angel, you go do that. But really, it's been a wonderful experience. I actually told my husband the other day, I was like, listen, when the kids are grown up, we're moving to North Carolina because they have the nicest people you could ever talk to on the phone. There's one gentleman, and then I know I have to be short, but there's one gentleman I spoke to. You could tell he was wrangling a 2-year-old, and he answered the phone. And I was like, oh, I'm asking a nonpartisan question, how's it going? And he said, oh, I need to know where I'm voting. And I gave him the information. And then he talked to me for about 8 or 10 minutes about how great it was to get a phone call just to help out, and that he really wishes he could help out, but he's kind of busy. And I could hear the kid crying in the background. I'm like, you go do what you need to do. Just don't forget to go vote. So for those of you who have not been involved in phone banking yet, it is not as scary as it sounds. It's actually quite lovely to talk to some of these voters who really need that information. So don't be afraid. But Elsa, I think Nancy, if we want to jump to Nancy next, if that's a good idea or not. Let me bring up Nancy. How about that?
Sounds great. And I think it's not going to matter in what order we do. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Nancy Neff in Palo Alto, California, and I am honored to be rallying with all of you wonderful volunteers. I am a shy person. Several years ago, I had to do a lot of phone banking to help pass the California Disclose Act, and though I have never learned to love doing it, I do love how effective phone banking is. I still often hope that they won't answer in person, but hey, most of the time they don't. During the Georgia primary, I was making calls for Reclaim Our Vote, and it was the easiest phone banking I have ever done. I mostly left messages, but when I did have a conversation with someone, they thanked me very sincerely for calling them. It made me feel that we are actually giving a gift when we make the calls that no one else does. I heard that during a Georgia primary, a black woman said to her friends, "Have the white ladies called you about voting yet?" As if it were this very nice invitation. That made me feel better about being the white lady. In September, as I was writing letters and postcards, I kept hearing more and more about voter suppression tactics. And that gave me the kick in the pants I needed to get off my duff, actually get on my duff, and make more phone calls to get out the vote. So I made a personal commitment to do daily phone banking. I hope you can too. It's only 16 days between now and Election Day. Thank you for all you do.
Woo-hoo. And we'd love to hear from, if they're there, I just can't see them from here. But Karen Wills, are you here also? And if you find Sue Wilson faster, there's Karen.
Yep.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, I was just waiting for permission to unmute. Thank you. This is so amazing. Oh my goodness. How inspiring. I am thrilled and honored to be a tiny part of the effort that Reclaim Our Vote has been doing this year. My name is Karen Wills. I'm the director of Minnesota UU Social Justice Alliance, and we represent 30 Unitarian Universalist congregations across Minnesota and the Dakotas. I am so grateful for the opportunity this year to have brought our congregations together with key liaisons who've reached out to their groups. We've had over 220 volunteers in more than 22 congregations, and all together we ended up sending out about 22,000 written messages to voters this year, of which about 6,000 were postcards from Reclaim Our, I'm sorry, I apologize, the other way around, of which about 16,000 were actually postcards from Reclaim Our Vote. And then we also sent another 6,000 letters from another organization. We are thrilled to be transferring our people to doing text banking and phone banking. We know that is the best way to get people to the polls. We also are majority white people calling in and standing beside, standing with, standing for social justice, and we will be here after the election. We have run campaign, we coordinated with campaigns. We know those are one and done, and we know that this is not about one and done. This is about the long haul and about what we are in this for and the accountability for social action and climate justice going into 2021. I'm just here to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm gonna hand it back to Elsa to say who's next.
Sorry, Karen. We completely switched that order, so apologies on that. We now are so lucky to be able to have a couple. We've got Sue and Joe Wilson, who are organizers and phone bankers par excellence, and they are from West Hartford, Connecticut. 2 for the price of 1. Hi, Sue and Joe.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
I'm Susan, this is Joe. We're from West Hartford, Connecticut, and the Universalist Church here, and I am a co-chair of the Social Justice Ministry. We have long had an anti-racism program in the church, and we decided this year that we wanted to do some work in voting and the election. And so we found Reclaim Our Vote, and it was just a wonderful melding of the two initiatives. So we started with a small gathering of 15 of us on a Zoom party, we called it, and did postcarding. So we did about 250 postcards. That has grown over the summer so that we have almost 100 people doing postcards, and we have mailed 7,000 postcards. Then we started, with the help of Elsa, to do phone banking. And so we have trained about 25 people to do phone banking. I personally started with Harris County, that's Houston in Texas, because that's my home, my old home. And so I just pulled up my old Texas accent and laid it on and had more fun than you can even imagine. In fact, tonight we're having fried green tomatoes, fried okra, and cornbread, just to prove to you that I'm from Texas. But my best recruit is my husband, and that's Joe. We did not allow him to do any postcarding because his handwriting is just atrocious. But he is a lawyer and he does know how to talk. So we let him do calling, and I'm going to let him talk now.
Okay, thank you very much. That's true. I don't get to write anything, but I'm not averse to calling. I guess you could say we'll call for cornbread because I'll do almost anything for that. Just recently, I've been calling in South Carolina. I've called 12 hours worth in the last 2 weeks down in South Carolina, Richland County in particular. And just a couple of stories I thought you might appreciate. I got a woman a couple of days ago, a Black woman, who said she was 80 years old and she had gone down to vote. This was on Wednesday, and stood in line 3 hours. And that she said it was simply beautiful. That was her term, that everybody was in line 6 feet apart. They all wore a mask. And even though they stood there 3 hours, it was just a beautiful thing to do. So I was very impressed with that. And I like that. And then yesterday I was calling again in Richland County and had done a good bit of calling. And then we were getting ready to have dinner and my phone rang. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I looked over and I saw that it was an 803 area code. And I knew that's where I'd been calling. So I answered the phone. And it was a lady calling me back who I had left a message for, but maybe she hadn't listened to the message. She was calling back to see a missed call. And could she help me? And I said, well, actually, I was calling you to see if we could tell about safe places to vote and safe ways to vote and how to go about it. And she said, well, let me tell you, I already voted. I voted yesterday. And the Reverend took me over, and it only took me 15 minutes to get that done. But I want to let you know that I've got 18 children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They're all going to vote. And from her tone of voice, I thought, well, if they don't vote, they better not let Grandma know. Else they're going to be out in the woodshed where they don't want to be with Grandma. So I got such a kick out of that. So we got 19 for the price of one. So she actually called me back in Connecticut. So that's my story. Go ahead, Elsa. I'm sure everybody who's been calling has a dozen stories like that.
I'll have to tell you about the Joe Wilson story in South Carolina sometime.
Yeah, well, but Joe, I want one more story for you, if you don't mind. I happen to know that Joe, who, I mean, you know, he's very self-deprecating, at least somewhat self-deprecating.
Very.
Okay, well said. Joe has set himself a goal of 50 hours of phone banking. So I think between Nancy phone banking every single day and Joe putting it in terms of, I'm going to count up that amount of time. I also happen to know Joe has a contest running in West Hartford. And I wondered, Joe, if you could just let us know about that offer that you've put out there.
I will. Thank you. We'll see. Starting about a month or so ago, when Susan had one of her group things, I said, look, I'll do a 50 for 50 challenge so that anyone who does 50 hours of phone banking from that night till the election day, I will personally deliver to them a $50 bottle of wine right to their house. And so I'm hoping some people take me up on that. I figured the least I could do is try to do 50 hours myself. I've only done 20 so far since then. I've done some before. So we'll see if we get there. But I did phone bank 6 days this week, so we'll find out. So anybody who needs a $50 bottle of wine starting tonight.
So I'm just curious, Joe, does that go beyond the boundaries of West Hartford? This is, Joe, this is when you should say to me, Elsa, I think those are the ones you can fund.
Okay, Elsa, I think those are the ones you can fund.
Okay, on whatever note. Fantastic. Joe and Sue, thank you so much. Do you believe how lucky we are to have them under the same roof too? So this is the kind of spirit and spreading that's just been mind-boggling to witness and to be enthused about every single day of the week. I am so grateful. I'd love to ask if Robert Lou McCreary is still in the house. Andrea had spotted him earlier. And if you're here, could you just, there you are, thank you. I've seen you on phone banks, kind sir. Can you say hi and tell us where you're from and what your experience has been like?
Yes, I'm in Austin, Texas. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Well, in the last year, I've undergone a tutorial by Andrea She has taught us folks down here in Texas how to do things right, and we've learned some of it. We're going to continue. Honest to goodness, it's just wonderful that we met. Here in Austin, just to give you an idea of the difference, what's happening here is that in Austin, Texas, our Travis County, the person who does our work for us, our registrar, has turned out 97% of all the people who are eligible to vote in Travis County are registered to vote. And we are voting at untold amounts as we speak. And so we have had a wonderful turnout, and we think we're going to really, really ring the bell. We also have Houston that's going to do well again due to Andrea. We've got some of the big cities. We've got El Paso. It's just like a revolution. And so we want to thank you sincerely for California and the East Coast and all the help that you've given us in Texas. And so we're trying to do everything we can to win, because if we can put these things together, we know we'll win the race. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
Woo-hoo. So how's that for around the country too? So could we have, I know we've run a little over, but don't leave yet. We're not going to do this quite yet. Could we just do some shout outs going around the country? Because I'm seeing these people in chat from just all over the place. And do we have Jen or anyone who can just try that? Or I think I'm just going to say, if you're from the Northeast, can you unmute yourselves? Everybody unmute themselves for one thing.
All right.
And can you?
I'm down there. Here we are. I see where we are.
Okay.
I hear lots of Northeast.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, the rally.
We're here.
Can we add the Midwest?
Hello.
Mid-Atlantic states, Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
Pennsylvania,
New Jersey,
New Jersey,
Delaware,
DC,
Midwest.
and then let's move down. Let's head toward those target states too.
The South.
The South and the Southeast, North Carolina, South Carolina, and where are target states? Well, we did a big rally, a fabulous one in North Carolina, though, too, I admit, and Georgia, and coming around to Florida. And Angel, I love that you're from Florida. That's fantastic. And moving around, and there's Texas. Texas and Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee.
Alabama's in tax training right now.
Oh, clearly a more important priority. You are so right, so right. And then can we move up through the Midwest? Any Arkansas or Jen, who have you been seeing there? And Oji, who have you been seeing?
North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota.
Minnesota,
Arkansas. All right.
Michigan, Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan.
Hey, Colorado's here. Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh, Colorado.
Hey.
Yay. To do there too. And then can we move west, and can we go northwest and move down to those gorgeous Southwest states?
Washington.
Washington.
Oregon.
Washington.
Portland, Oregon. Idaho. Oregon.
I have to say, in this day and age of COVID, Zoom is such a gift and has really taught us what we must not lose about being able to see all these wonderful faces from so many different places. Thank you, thank you. And
You're muted, Elsa.
oh, sorry.
frozen.
There you go.
Oh, sorry, Jen.
You're good.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Do we have, I'm not frozen to me. Do we have something from Jen and Angel that you're going to show next?
Yep.
Law? So over to the phenomenal Jen Hallam, who's also our regional organizer for the entire Philadelphia area where my sister lives. And my sister recently met me for 5 days in her vacation home and came with this gigantic stack of 300 Reclaim Our Vote cards. And I said, Elizabeth, we live 3,000 miles apart from each other. And I said, Elizabeth, you followed my link. Thank heavens, you really did it. And she was writing postcards for 5 days straight, I promise. She said, no, that's not your link. That's what my people gave me to do. I signed up to do postcarding and they gave me your postcards to do. They were my postcards, of course, you realize. But I was so grateful. So Jen, I'm so grateful to know that you've been that phenomenal.
Hi. Also, we're having a small problem, which is that it's not letting me share from my screen. So, if you want to stall for a minute, I will upload the Dropbox.
Try now.
Okay.
And if not, Jen, I'd love to just make.
Okay. I think we're good.
Perfect.
Let's see.
Thanks so much. Thanks. By the way, that was, I want you to know, the first technical question. And it's only because the person from whom we had a lot of photos hadn't seen the message to get them to Jen, not just to me. So poor Jen spent, I think, probably the half hour before making magic happen.
Angel, I still can't share from my my computer.
Jen, would you mind emailing him that file? I don't know if that can all happen that quickly, but just while I mention the thing I'd love us to take away from this and to remember, as Nancy told us, we still do have 16 days left. So even though everybody has been so flat out and a weekday looks the same as a weekend and midnight looks the same if you're writing postcards as 6 a.m. does, and just organizing, the organization that all 25,000 of you have put into this has just been phenomenal. And people like Nancy Goodband, who never stop, who never forget a detail, and yet also never lose sight of that great overview of why we're doing what we're doing and how to make sure we really optimize all of this incredible talent. I have never seen such a talented group of people keep mushrooming. It's just been phenomenal. We must have an amazing leader in Andrea Miller. You all think so? Can we do a great shout out for Andrea for right now? The visual, I love all of that.
Well, in order to have, quote, a great leader, that means among you, there are amazing and phenomenal leaders. Because as someone told me, all of your volunteers have volunteers.
And they often have volunteers too. So we have found one of the great things is that it's, as we call it, a very flat organization. And the fact that everybody has become a leader because all of you are telling all of your friends and getting them going. And then you, of course, end up organizing them. And this grassroots spreading of the wealth and the knowledge base and experience that Andrea has enabled us to be able to optimize is just, this is the stuff America is made of. And that's what I want to end up taking away from all of this.
All right, Elsa, I've got it.
Oh, fantastic. Angel's going to show us a few more people, thanks to Jen.
Yes.
And you can see Angel working this in that
feverishly.
There it is.
Here we are. And this is from, I should remember where everyone is from.
From the East Coast to the West Coast, in between and beyond, you organized and delivered, congregated and social distanced. You called and you texted, you wrote. And you wrote, and you wrote, and you wrote some more. You've helped hundreds, thousands, millions of Americans exercise their power, use their voices, and reclaim the vote. A 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. Thank you.
Woohoo! Jennifer Hallam, I've got to say, tears in my eyes again. It's maybe a good thing I have glasses on so you can't see it that well. Wow.
Next time, give me a couple of days and we'll do even better, Elsa.
No kidding. No kidding. Woo. Well, Jen and Angel, I just have to say, are the backbone of the reason that this was all reasonable for you to drink in. Please, in our future lives, I want to go to their movies is all I can say. I'm sure I'm going to see them on the big screen soon. Thank you.
Next year.
Also. Next year. Jen, what's next year? What's coming out?
Oh, my independent documentary will be coming out next year. I'll send you the link to.
Fabulous. And we will, via the always incredible Nancy Goodband letters, you'll hear more about that too. Thank you, Jen. The talent in this group is just phenomenal. I would love to have you all set your own goals for this next 16 days. How much phone banking are you going to do? When can you actually write it into your calendar? Who else could you have on a little Zoom with you at the same time, just to start yourselves off, and then 2 to 3 hours later to regroup, and just for 10, 15 minutes say, so how are your calls today? Do you have any good stories from it? When are we going to do this again? And if you can just keep those little groups of you going. Andrea showed you, we just did 119,000 calls in a week. We hadn't beat 100,000 by then. Now, wouldn't it be cool to do as many calls as we have postcards? I know that sounds a little much, but we could sure have it out there as our goal. But if everybody could do either a little bit every day, or any day that you can't, say the next day, maybe I can do twice as much. We only have 16 days, and we've got to keep those crowds swarming to the polls. The other thing I'd like to reinforce is how important csay2020.com is. And I know it's been in the chat several times, but whenever on your phone banks you hear about people saying, oh, my vote doesn't count, they always give me so much trouble, and you convince them that they're going to go look for that trouble again this time, please arm them with csay2020.com. Everybody in the country needs to have that in their brains, because the more we can spotlight in the moment what's going on that is not okay, that is not in our Constitution, that's not fair and just, the faster we get this ship on the right track and moving forward. And we are not going to not let that happen. We do know. And then all of Andrea's plans for what we get to do starting November 4th. Maybe November 6th, says she. She says we might get to sleep for 2 weeks. But Andrea is hosting another one of her wonderful Thursday afternoon evenings briefings on Thursday, November 5th. So make sure you're on that call. It's just going to happen like clockwork. Don't think we're giving up yet. And can you imagine hearing a debrief of this election from the incredible Andrea Miller? That one is going to break the bank of the 1,000-person Zoom room.
It's going to be a party, people, a party.
Woo! Be there or be square, and you wouldn't want to be square. Thank you, Angel, Jen, everybody who's been on, both of our fabulous reverends, because Bradley really got us going. Bradley actually had wonderful stories from North Carolina. And given that all of you have sent almost 3 million postcards to North Carolina, I know but he's busy there watching all those lines and making sure people get to the polls, getting them rides and everything. Thank you for arranging that too, Andrea. So we're going to peel off and go out to some music, but remember, knock Andrea's socks off by making it 150,000 calls next week, and then break the bank with 200,000 that following week. And the phenomenal music, which is also going to bring tears to my eyes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Oji and Jen and Nancy and Andrea and Ranwa. And here we go with Ray Charles.
Oh, beautiful, for heroes proved in liberating strife. Who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, make God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, far spacious skies, far amber waves of grain, far purple mountain majesties, over the fruited plain. But now wait a minute, I'm talking about America, sweet America. You know, God done shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good. Yes, he did. Heavy brotherhood from sea to shining sea. You know, I wish I had somebody to help me sing this.
Can you all see each other? Now you can wave to each other. Sorry, we didn't let you do a bit of that before. Everybody unmute.
Oh, hold on.
Love you all, Carrie and Elsa.
Wonderful.
Oh, and Jen and
Thank you, Elsa, for organizing.
Oh my God, all of you,
Yay.
Lori, Lou,
Thanks, everyone.
Kimberly, loved your
Thank
video.
you.
Barbara,
Good job.
Elizabeth, Liz,
Thank
Nancy.
you. Thank you. Good job.
Yay. Yay.
Wonderful.
Bye. Bye. Quarantine.
Bye. Bye.